with every different cohort of new hires that we're onboarding, there's always something that's changed because you've been given feedback that this was great, do more of this, maybe not so much of this other thing.
Hi, and welcome everybody to the People Champion podcast by Elevate HR. Elevate HR is a cloud-based platform that helps you manage your employees' payroll, leave, and performance. As the people company, part of our mission is to elevate the HR professionals in 3 ways. And we do that firstly through our innovative system that makes your work easy and fast, our community that helps you network and connect with like-minded HR professionals, and lastly, through this podcast that helps you upskill and enhance your mindset as a people professional. My name is Pili Tasara, the Head of Community Development at Elevate HR, and I will be hosting this podcast. Today we're going to be talking about employee experience beyond the paycheck. And I'm so privileged because we have fantastic guests who are trailblazers, especially when it comes to curating stellar employee experience at their organizations. So I'll begin with Sabrine, who is the head of HR at Food for Education. First of all, fantastic job at Food for Education. Can you present to the set? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Pili, and thank you for having me today, obviously. I've been a keen follower of Elevate HR, and it's a real pleasure doing this. So my name is Sabrine. I'm the head of people and strategy at Food for Education. A little about myself. My background is in professional services, specifically in recruitment and in the banking sector. I've been at Food for Education just over a year now. It's been a fantastic year of very rapid growth. And this year is even more audacious. So looking forward to digging into employee experience, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And then secondly, we have Fiona Maingi, head of HR at CredRails. Can you, Busana, please tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Thank you, Pili. So as you know, my name is Fiona, head of HR at CredRails. Ideally, my background has been in recruitment from both agency and in-house, and grew into the fintech space or the startup world where we're booming and growing and hoping for better practices. Yeah.
All right, so I'll just begin with you, Fiona. What do you feel it means to put the human back to, back to work, and why is it important?
All right, great. So I think what it means to put the human into work aspect is being able to prioritize the needs and well-being of employees. Ideally, that way you're able to focus on creating a very positive culture within and a safe culture or environment in the workspace. Yeah.
So, Sabrine, I know you're doing some fantastic work at Food for Education in terms of employee experience. But what would you say are some of the common mistakes that people encounter and challenges when they're trying to curate that experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a few, things here and there that people or HR teams end up doing in thinking that they're solving for actual pain points, when in reality they're solving for what they think are pain points. So I think one really common challenge that we run into is having a top-bottom approach, right? Where you have the leadership or the management curating what the employee experience is from where they sit, right? The reality is different teams and different demographics within your wider team have different needs, right? So it makes more sense than to take a bottom-up approach, right? Where you're getting feedback directly from the team, and then you're using that to then curate the employee experience. I'm a very strong believer in one size does not fit all, right? What I will resonate with is not what you will resonate with, is not what Fiona will resonate with, right? So being able to curate an experience that touches on the different demographics within your wider team, I think is very, very important. And availing that space and platform for people to feel like they can give their feedback, getting their buy-in is super important, and making sure, again, just as I said, you're solving for actual pain points and not what you think are pain points. I think the other thing I'd say there is a lot of employers, and it's not coming from a bad place necessarily. I think it's just what has been practiced. we tend to think that money will fix everything. Money is not always the answer, right? We've all had stories of organizations that pay amazingly well, but they still have high attrition rates. People are not happy. So the employee experience is, think about it more as holistic, because humans they're multidimensional, right? So you need to be able to take into consideration what drives them. They're more than just a tool of productivity at the workplace. They're also human beings who are multidimensional. And as much as you can, you need to be able to incorporate that into your employee experience.
Wow, I love that. I'd also love to draw from some of your experiences, Fiona. What are some of the strategies that you've used at CredRails to create this stellar employee experience?
That's a very good question. So ideally, what I believe is leadership having to lead by example, right? It's very important to foster that culture, ideally, to have that positive environment within the organization, and also just being able to listen to feedback, take that feedback, and that could be through employee surveys, and be able to foster and listen and be able to engage with them. Ideally, as Severin had said, companies focus too much on salaries, the perks, the benefits, ideally, and forget that employees can be frustrated and want to actually improve growth-wise and development-wise. So ideally, being able to also have structures in place for growth, I believe, is very important. Yeah.
All right. What makes food or education such a great place to work at?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I hope we're a good place to work. But I think I would say it's the intentionality by which we approach what the employee experience is. So again, a more holistic approach that is looking at well-being, that is looking at both work-life balance and work-life integration, right? Because both school of thoughts will apply differently for different people. I think some of the strategies that I feel have helped us as far as kind of curating a bespoke employee experience is, again, just being very intentional with that, right? I think we are very firm believers in HR policies do not just only need to be crafted with the organization needs in mind. They should really revolve around the employees, right? And so some of the strategies that we have employed as far as well-being is concerned is making sure that, one, we're availing platforms and opportunities for people to give feedback. So we have a number of different feedback loops, from, pulse check sessions to all-hands sessions. We have a very intricate onboarding experience that actually starts a few weeks before the person actually joins the organization. They have their first day. As far as, employee welfare and well-being, we have a very I think it's something that we're all really proud of. We have an annual mental health break. We're actually just about to embark on it next week. And so what we do is every year we give about 5 days of fully paid leave. This is not coming out of your personal time off or your annual leave entitlement, fully paid. And you just take a break to recharge, rejuvenate, get R&R, make sure that you're fully unplugged. The concept behind that is the concept of taking a collective break, right? If I'm on leave and Fiona is not, there's always the temptation to check Slack, or let me just give a quick call. I have a quick question, Fiona. But when you're all on break, then you're able to fully unplug. Especially given our very audacious mission, as I mentioned, it's very important to get that heads down time. So those are some of the, ways that we do it. We employ both modern solutions like, mental health break, and bringing in experts to talk about mental health, availing resources. But we also do believe that there are tried and tested ways that seem more traditional, but also just still work, right? Like having employee satisfaction surveys, doing one-on-ones, doing town halls. These have been there, but they also work. So we're not averse to kind of having a mix of both modern solutions and what has been in existence.
Wow, I love that collective. I think we should copy of this.
Yeah.
Right, Fiona?
Yeah, we need to.
Awesome. So you talked about the role of leadership in changing this experience. But what about the employee themselves? Do they have a role and responsibility to also enhance this experience for themselves?
I believe so. So ideally, what I think they need to do is employees should be more open and communicate, ideally, especially with the hiring managers and stakeholders. And of course, for us to be able to be open to that feedback as well. Another thing is for them to also take initiative. I believe it's very important. Ideally, that shows that yes, you are going to get a great experience, right? But taking that initiative also shows that you're able to build relationships and positive relationships within the organization, and that gives you a really great experience as an employee within the organization, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Would you like to chime in on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, she's captured it very well. I think the concept behind personal responsibility is one that we as people leaders need to be very intentional about ingraining in the team, right? Again, as much as it is on the leadership or the management team to come up with initiatives that are good for the employees, there should also be a huge sense of personal responsibility where Severin comes and says, you need to take a mental health break for 5 days. And Pili says, no, I don't think that's conducive. Let's think about it this and this way, right? Because once they are able to feel seen and heard, then they're able to give you very raw and valuable feedback that then helps you continue enhancing the experience. So just as Fiona said, I think personal responsibility is something that we really need to ingrain in our teams, because the idea of curating a good culture and ensuring that you have a good work environment doesn't just lie with your managers or your leaders. It's also something that lies with you, and you should have a say, right, in how your experience unfolds.
I love it. You know, earlier you mentioned about food for education having like an intricate onboarding strategy. So what are some of the best practices surrounding that you would recommend or advise other HR professionals to take?
Yeah, I mean, I'll share from personal experience. Obviously, what works for us might not work for everyone. But I think one of the things that we like prioritizing is just the engagement, right? I think oftentimes you get a job, you sign the offer letter, you're probably serving notice, or you need like a week or two. And then it's like radio silence until the morning of. And then it's like, you need to report to this place and come wearing this. So I think the concept of just continuous engagement makes sense. So, you know, we start about 3 or so weeks before. Every week you're getting like an email with a toolkit with different things like a welcome, you have your onboarding package, you have, you know, a few pre-reads or a few collateral that you can start reading up about the organization. All this leading up to the first day. And then also being very intentional with the first week, because the first week, I'm sure Fiona knows, can be make or break, right?
Yeah.
So ensuring that you're helping them get various touch points with different key people so that they can start to better understand their business, because onboarding goes just beyond the manager-reportee relationship. Have them have touch points with different members of the team so that they can start to kind of piece the pieces together and see how this well-oiled machine works, right? And then all the way into the first month when you're doing either your 1-month survey to get feedback. I think on a personal note, just the feedback that we get from onboarding has been really helpful. With every different cohort of new hires that we're onboarding, there's always something that's changed because you've been given feedback that this was great, do more of this, maybe not so much of this other thing. So also making sure that you're getting real-time and frequent feedback on your onboarding process so that you can continue to rapidly iterate.
Yeah.
I wonder, how can employers like balance the need for this productivity and results with also now the need for well-being? And maybe Fiona, you could think that.
Ideally, what I think should happen is, as Severin has mentioned, have your mental health awareness week. I really love that idea, which I'm going to make sure I foster. Other than that, there are very many programs. There's companies such as Zuri Health, there's trainings, and also being able to communicate and have that empathy aspect and fostered within the organization. But ideally, I feel mental health and just your health awareness as well is very important. Being able to ascertain that your employees are healthy. What we do at Credrills is we make sure we have every 6 months a wellness check, right, which is fully paid and catered for by the company. Comes to your home if you're working from home on that specific day, where you're able to get your results and see that you're 100% healthy, right? And what we need to focus on next is your well-being and your mental health. So ideally what we do with that as well is we make sure if you need a day off, just say it, tell your manager or hiring manager, and you will get your day or 2 or 3, whichever it is, so that you can be able to breathe. Yeah.
I'm going to be implementing all this.
I really like that as well, Fiona. Well done.
Yeah.
So, how do you measure? Like, how do then people professionals come and measure the effectiveness of their strategies, like the employee experience strategies? How would you say? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways to measure that. I would like to state that I think that a lot of times people think HR people are just like on the softer side of things, right? Yeah. There are actually key HR metrics that you need to be tracking as a people leader. You know, what is your attrition like? What is your time to hire? What is the cost to company? Not just from a salary perspective, but for things like statutory deductions, like NSSF has an implication on the cost to company. How long it takes to hire. Are you doing it in-house versus are you doing it with a recruiter? So there's very key HR metrics that we need to start tracking. As far as employee experience is concerned, I'd say feedback, right? Again, it's very easy for Severin and Pili to say, let's buy pizza for the entire team and think that is going to boost morale. Not that it doesn't. I still think it's a good idea, right? Whereas someone will come and tell you, maybe let's do a sports day, for example. I'd like to be active. I'd like to be competitive and you know, kind of get that competitive spirit going with my team, right? So I think that feedback is very, very crucial. Just understanding what the people want, what they resonate with, and then how you're tracking that then is, how is this person performing, say, in their role? Are they acclimating to the organization well? What's the feedback that you're getting from other people? What feedback are they giving? We're very big on 360-degree feedback, which is feedback from your senior, your peer, and any juniors that you have, right? So that you're getting a very complete picture of, you know, how it has been for the team working with you as you're doing your own self-assessment, right? So I think those are some of the ways that you can start to track that so that you have more tangible metrics over and above, you know, of course, the more qualitative side of things.
I understand. Yeah. Well, but we're still on that topic. We like to think of ourselves as innovation-driven people professionals. Mm-hmm. So what's the role of like technology and automation in employee experience? I'd like to hear that from you.
That's a very good question. So ideally, I think the role of technology would be to be able to track and be able to help us improve within the organization the experience of employees. So ideally how we can do this is through HRIS systems or through any surveys that we give out to the employees. And HRIS systems are very important because that way you're able to track L&D, you're able to track performance, you're able to track unconscious biasness as well, which is something else that is very important, where you have a tool, anyone can be able to go and anonymously state what their issue is, etc., within the organization. And that way you're able to flag it, and as soon as possible, which is another critical thing. Never let issues delay or lie under the rug for too long. Ideally, it's very important to always nip it in the bud and solve those issues immediately. Yeah, so ideally, I think the HRIS system is very important in terms of tracking employee experience. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So as we draw to a close, I would love to hear from both of you. What's the future of employee experience? What are the trends that you envision like taking over?
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
All right. I think the most emerging trend would be the flexible working environment, right? Where employees are able to have a connection with their employees, right, or colleagues, and then also have their own space at home to work and be able to focus on their, you know, work daily, day-to-day tasks. I think that has really worked well, especially with their mental health as well, where you're able to unwind in your own space if you're working with your pajamas or whatever it is, but you're in your own safe space, right? So I think that has really, really worked well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's definitely one of the big ones, obviously being accelerated by COVID. So, you know, working from home, remote working, or the hybrid model,
Yeah.
right? I think that's really, really big. I think maybe the other trend that I would possibly pick out would be around wellness, right? I think that's something that's becoming very prominent. And so, again, thinking of employees more holistically, and this can look like mental health, right? This can look like providing different platforms for them to feel like they're being heard and seen. This can look like intrinsic motivation, where you're helping them understand this is how my work is contributing to the overall organization objective and the shared goals that we have, right? So that they feel aligned to the mission. That then ends up driving them, and the motivation is intrinsic as opposed to the bottom line that I'm getting at my paycheck at the end of the month. So I think that's another trend that I'd pick out. Maybe just a final one, I think would be as far as proactivity in the HR space. I think, and again, this is not a dig at anyone, but I think most organizations, the HR or people function is very reactive, right? We step in when something happens, right? But we can get much better at being proactive, forecasting and planning. The same way, HR professionals are able to do things like talent planning. We can start to get ahead of things like the employee experience. What does welfare look like? What does engagement look like? Instead of being reactive when a need or a requirement comes up, we use historical data to start to predict some of the things that we might, face at some point in the future. So a lot of this is very, very data driven, but I think it will help the HR function really, really become a huge contributor to what the business objectives are.
Oh wow, I've already said right about the future. So maybe we can get like a parting shot from you, both of you, to people, like a people professional who's heard you and wants to start curating this stellar employee experience. So your final words. I'll start with you, Fiona.
All right, great. I think to be able to curate a great employee experience is don't start when it's meant to start. Ideally, always, for an example, onboarding, start beforehand, right? Always have, for us, what we do is we have assigned buddies for onboarding where you're able to shadow employees, and that gives you a sense of belonging as well. So ideally, it's very important to have a sense of belonging in the organization. Always communicate with empathy and have that open communication forum within the organization from top to bottom. Yeah.
I love that. Don't start when you're
when it's meant to.
when it's meant to start.
Yeah.
What about you?
You've captured it very well. I really like that. I think maybe to any aspiring people leaders, already people leaders in the team, I'd say approach this like you know nothing. That's really it's a tactic that me and my team use, and I mean it's not to say that we don't know anything, but it's to say that what we know is not enough. We need to also hear from the team. We need to get feedback. And so when you're getting this feedback, it's less about validating your hypothesis, but more as it being complementary to what you already think, right? So you know nothing, and the process has to be co-created. You can't sit and write a document and then that's the gospel truth. No, go to the team, hear their feedback, come back and iterate. So always be open, because as much as you're the subject matter expert teaching them, they're also going to teach you a whole lot. So yeah.
Wow, I've learned a lot from you. So ladies, thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, amazing nuggets of wisdom that we've been able to pick out. So thank you so much for being a part of it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the session just as much as I have. Please remember to engage with us by throwing your comments down below. Let us know some of the strategies that you're using to curate an amazing employee experience for your team.
And if you're looking for an innovative HR system to manage your employees' payroll, leave, and performance, check out elevatehr.co. We'd also like to thank our hosts for this podcast, Spark Shelter. If you're looking for luxurious real estate in the Kilimani, Lavington, Kileleshwa area, check them out on all their social media platforms.